restless and wanted to establish himself once again as a European icon because his fame, after being a child prodigy, had rather faded, at least in his eyes. So he felt very, very held back in his gig in Salzburg and wanted to reach out again into the big world. And what was going on in the big world? In Paris, the centerpiece of that world, it wasn't London at that time, it was Paris. Symphonia Concertante, or Sinfonia Concertante. Wouldn't know how to pronounce the plural. And so he wrote ahead of time to have his music performed there, knowing it was the flavor of the month, as it were. And when he finally did arrive with his mother, he wrote music on the spot as well. He wrote the Paris Symphony, specifically having checked out a few concerts. He saw what the taste, le goût of the people were in the fancy circles of the aristocrats whom he wanted to impress. And with his amazingly absorptive talent, he went on to write his Paris Symphony in D major. In the catalog, it's called K297. The Kirkel number 297, the Paris Symphony. The next piece in the catalog is this piece, K297B. Why? Because the piece was never performed. What else was going on in Paris, as well as intrigues? More intrigues. Italians had taken over the town, and opera concerts, singing concerts, lots of Italian singers, lots of impresarios, whatever the plural of impresario, impresarii, concert promoters had sewn up the town, and there was all kinds of politics and backstabbing and favors and payoffs and the usual business of the music world. Mozart walked into it thinking it was the same world he had left when he was a preteen, only to find out he was excluded. And even though he had written the piece for four of his friends from Mannheim, the best wind players he could trust with the piece, it never came to be. He wrote letters back to his dad. They shut me out. They wouldn't do my music. They gave me a half a rehearsal for the symphony, and then sort of got through it miraculously, thank to God. We got through the concert, but the Sinfonia Concertante, oh well, they wouldn't do it. And now he doesn't have the music. He promised his father in a letter, I'll write it out again sometime, from memory. Remember, this is Mozart. He didn't have to recompose the piece, he would just write it again, top to bottom. And so the piece I'm going to hear is in three movements. It's in E flat, and curiously, each movement is in the same key. Normatively, when Mozart or any other composer would write a three-movement work, they would have a variant key in the center. E flat, maybe A flat or C minor, something related to the original key. And then the last movement, again in E flat to bring you home. This time it's E flat, and E flat. It's kind of odd for Mozart. Any questions right now on the Sinfonia Concertante K297B? Okay, the last thing I'll say about it is that it was a missing score for a long time and only discovered in the 19th century. In a printed version, that's why the B is included. The scholars who redact these scores and who edit them are fairly sure that it's 98 to 99% Mozart. But because there is no manuscript, no autograph score, they have to rely on the earliest form of the score that there is, and it's a printed version that emerged about 1830. I don't remember the date on that. And that's as much authenticity as they have to work with. It's evident from the parts that the orchestral music is intactly Mozart. But some of the solo lines may have been altered by other hands, probably by the wind players themselves. Because there are, as time marches, this is not like a fraud or anything like that. As time marches on, developments in the making of instruments changes the relationship to the score as well. If you have an E-flat clarinet that cannot hit a low B or B-flat, you have to adjust something. And you can't be adjusting your instrument on stage, you have to adjust the music. And so, some lines that don't sound like absolutely what Mozart would probably do, sounds like a solution to a problem, have been found in the parts, and that's why it has the B, because there are some sticklers for purity in the musicological world, particularly in London, who tend to think is actually authentic. It's not quite big, not so much as a friend of Mozart, not the old man Mozart. And that's why the B is appended to the number. Don't fear, it's still Mozart. Maybe a little bandaged here and there, but it's still Mozart. Any questions? You're either raptly attentive or dead asleep. Which is it? Good morning. Okay, that's the first half of the program, and then we have intermission. Everybody remains intermittent, and we come back. Haydn.